the Democratic segregationists were all liberal Democrats. It is a lie that they were conservative Democrats.
Everybody was a segregationist, darling. You know, basically, everybody was. White people were. It didn't matter whether they were Republicans or not.
Ask your question.
The first integration.
And Coulter, never one to shy away from controversy, unleashed her unapologetic conservative firepower during a heated exchange on The View. Facing off against the woke hosts of the daytime talk show, Coulter held nothing back as she tackled their left-leaning narratives with her trademark sharp wit and unflinching candor. The confrontation spanned everything from today's hottest political debates to deeply polarizing cultural issues. Coulter's bold responses and calculated arguments left the panel visibly shaken, struggling to counter her points. Whether challenging the dominance of woke ideology in media or defending conservative ideals, Coulter stood her ground with a confidence that reignited discussions around free speech, political correctness, and media bias. This electrifying moment wasn't just a debate, it was a full-on ideological clash. Coulter's fearless pushback against The View's narratives was a masterclass in confronting opposing viewpoints head-on. Love her or hate her, and Coulter's fiery performance on The View is an absolute must-watch for anyone following the ongoing culture wars. Tune in to see Coulter deliver her hard-hitting commentary, shaking up the status quo and sparking a conversation that has everyone talking. If you're ready for a no-holds-barred battle of ideologies, this exchange is one for the history books.
Tell me what you're trying to say in this book, because we don't know what you're trying to say.
What I'm trying to say is race-mongering has been very bad for America. Liberals use it to promote causes that have nothing to do with blacks and, in fact, harm blacks. And that excellent lead-in you just gave about O.J., I mean, I think that was the moment, having lived near New York City in the 70s and 80s, which was the golden era. It was like Trayvon Martin and Duke lacrosse case every day. With the O.J. verdict, white America said, that's it, the white guilt bank is shut down, and that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to black Americans.
What are you talking about?
I meant that no longer...
Being acquitted was good for who?
Yes, because you had millions of white people watching with the equivalent of what in New York we used to refer to as the Brooklyn juries, who simply would not convict even guilty black criminals, not innocent black
criminals. Hold up, Ms. Coulter. Please stop. Please stop. If you're going to talk about race, at least know what you're talking about. At least know what you're talking about. Well, tell me how much you know about being black.
Well, this isn't about being black.
Well, but you just said, you just made all these statements about how black people feel. Tell me how you know that. Yeah, you did.
This is not a book about black people. It is a book about white liberals. And I do know, and this is a fact, that...
This is their go-to trump card every single time, because they have no substantive response to anything Ann Coulter is saying. Instead of addressing her arguments directly, they default to the same tired tactic. Oh, you can't comment on race or race relations because you're white. Or you're not a black person, so you can't have an opinion on issues affecting black people. It's a deflection, plain and simple. When faced with facts or viewpoints they can't counter, they resort to playing the race card. It's their only move because they have no actual rebuttal to Ann Coulter's arguments. Rather than engaging in a meaningful debate or challenging her points with logic, they sidestep the discussion entirely by weaponizing identity politics. This pattern not only weakens their position, but also underscores the lack of depth in their arguments. If the only response is to dismiss someone's opinion based on their race, rather than the merit of their ideas, it speaks volumes about the strength, or lack thereof, of their stance.
Once, for years, Republican policies on crime and welfare, for example, were called racist. When they finally got implemented, after the O.J. verdict, I might add, by Giuliani in New York, Reagan and Bush judges overall, tens of thousands of black lives were saved. That is a fact. I don't have to know about being black, but I know because you're to be dead.
Your facts are just a little shaky. I mean, you're saying that because black people, because liberals are what? Because liberals have abandoned black people now, because What? I don't get it. I don't understand.
I don't think liberals ever cared about black people. I mean, 5 minutes after the Civil Rights Act of '64, they start calling everything that has nothing to do with black people a civil rights issue. Abortion on demand, homeless rights.
So are you saying that liberals don't care about black people? Then are you saying Republicans embrace us in a warm, fuzzy blanket?
We're not embraced back. But yeah, we tried to.
So wait a minute. So the Southern strategy was a white liberal thing? No, it was a Republican thing.
No.
And also, Newt Gingrich calls President Obama the food stamp president. That's not racist?
This chapter.
Wait a second.
Do you really think that was? Do you believe it was racist for Newt to say that the president is a food stamp president?
Well, he
Can you
wouldn't
dive
say
into
that.
that?
If we could just skip, I'm not a big
fan.
fan of Newt, so if we could just skip that for a second and get to the Southern strategy.
Yeah.
Because I've specifically disproved it. It's an absolutely liberal folklore. Republicans were winning the South since 1920. It was the outer states of the South. It was Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia.
Voting. What are you talking about? We weren't allowed
Who
to
was
vote.
trying to get them to vote? Republicans were.
Yeah,
and the first black congressmen were all Republicans. And the first black governor was a
You're
Republican.
talking about way back.
That Republican
After-
understand is so different from
Yeah.
No, that is definitely what we're told.
This
But in
Republican isn't
fact,
that bad.
the Democratic segregationists were all liberal Democrats. It is a lie that they were conservative Democrats.
Everybody
It
was a segregationist, darling. And, you know,
The
basically,
Republicans weren't.
everybody was. White people were. It didn't matter whether they were
Absolutely
Republicans
were
or
not.
Ask you a question.
The first integrationists.
That argument doesn't even make sense. If everyone was a segregationist, how did things change? Clearly, if the entire population supported segregation, it would never have been abolished. We'd still have segregated schools and public spaces today, but that's obviously not the case. The claim is ridiculous, and it's exhausting to keep revisiting this tired narrative. What's refreshing, though, is seeing someone like Coulter step up and say what so many others are too afraid to voice. Let's face it, hardly anyone else is making these points, especially not in mainstream media, and this is exactly why she's been effectively blacklisted from shows like The View. They can't handle someone who isn't afraid to speak her mind. Unlike the carefully curated guests who tiptoe around controversial topics, Coulter goes straight for the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. In today's cancel culture climate, saying what you really think is a fast track to backlash and being labeled as controversial. But Coulter doesn't care, and that's why so many people respect her. They might not be able to publicly agree with her, especially those with 9-to-5 jobs who fear losing everything if they speak up, but privately, many share her views. This particular clip, though it's been around for a while, has only amplified her support. That courage resonates with people who are tired of the same politically correct narratives dominating the conversation. Coulter's willingness to speak boldly is exactly why she's made such an enduring impact.
Just read chapter 14 in this book. The first Republicans to be elected in the South.
Listen to my grandmother, who was there, who remembers what happened.
Howard Baker, an aggressive integrationist, first Republican elected in Tennessee to the Senate. You have Winthrop Rockefeller, first Republican governor in
But you know, I have a question
Arkansas.
about today.
Integration.
Let me ask you something about what's going on now. It seems to
But
me
the Southern strategy is a lie.
It seems
And
to me
it's
that
explained
voter
here.
suppression is happening in areas where black people and Hispanics are, and it really is being promoted by the Republicans, not the Democrats. So in my view, and I have a different one from you, it looks as though the Republicans are really going against blacks, not the liberals.
No, and this
What
is
do you
a
say to
perfect
that?
example. Yes, it is, and it's a perfect example. No, I'll explain why. Of liberals using the label of civil rights to promote a liberal cause they support, i.e. voter fraud. In fact, one of the first states in the Union to pass voter ID bills was Rhode Island, 85% Democratic legislature. And who pushed it? A black Democrat in the House, a black Democrat in the Senate.
You're talking
Because
about-
that's a fact.
No, you may pick out Rhode Island, but there are other states where it's completely
Why would black
Republican-driven.
Democrats be pushing this? Because they had seen
Because they
voter
want the
fraud.
Hispanic vote to go to
Can I
Romney.
ask a general question?
So, what's the deal? Are they just incredibly talented at finding low IQ individuals? Or is this an act? Honestly, it seems far more likely that they're playing dumb for ratings, pushing woke propaganda, or protecting their own fragile worldview by pretending not to understand basic facts. Here's the thing. Facts aren't up for interpretation. It doesn't matter if a fact makes you uncomfortable, seems hateful, or gets labeled as racist. A fact is a fact. What Ann Coulter is stating exists whether you like it or not. But instead of addressing the truth, the View panel acts like they can't comprehend reality, twisting it to fit their narrative. So let me ask you, do you think the hosts of The View, like Whoopi and Joy, are genuinely this clueless? Or are they acting for ratings, pandering to their woke audience, or so brainwashed they can't process the truth anymore? Let me know in the comments what you think about Ann Coulter's appearance on The View. Did she absolutely obliterate Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and the rest of these woke ideologues? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to watch more interesting videos. Thank you for your interest.